Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for once again enabling us to meet, to mention His name, to send salutations on His beloved, our beloved Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and to attempt some form of reflection on the seerah, the life of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or rather some of the main features of his prophethood and his life. So alhamdulillah, yesterday we reached and addressed the main events or features of the 8th year. And after the conquest of Mecca, firstly, shukran for waiting for me. Appreciate it. After the conquest of Mecca, we spoke about the incident of Hunain and how, after the difficulty of the actual surprise in Hunain, surprise attack, and the difficulty of the siege in Ta'if, after the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam is back in Ju'arana, and the distribution of the booty, and then the release of captives, and then Thaqif clan sending representatives, and finally they accepted the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in that space of ease, after the difficulty. Today, inshallah, with the final 2 years, what came to my heart and mind to reflect on is an attribute that we all need, and an attribute that Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says Allah loves, and an attribute that the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam he himself had, and it's the attribute of rifq. Rifq is translated in many ways, but it essentially is gentleness. Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith in Sahih Muslim said, "Inna Allah rafiqun yuhibbur rifqa." Verily Allah is the most gentle, the most kind, the most caring. If we have a gentleman's a name as Rafiq, it means someone who is exceptionally caring and gentle and kind. A Rafiq is sometimes translated as a friend. A friend. But there are various words for friend in Arabic. Isn't Sadiq also a friend? Have you heard of the word Sadiq as friend? Sadiq comes from the word Sidq. Sidq means honesty. A Sadiq is a friend that is honest with you. Isn't Anis also a friend? Anis is also a friend. Anis comes from the word uns. Uns means familiarity. Anis is a friend who you are extremely familiar with and you can be yourself with. There are other words also for friend, like Khalil, like Wali, and each has a different connotation. You with me? Rafiq is also generally translated as a friend, but it's a friend that has rifq, a friend that has gentleness and kindness and compassion within himself. Here, Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is saying, Inna Allah rafiqun. Verily, Allah is a rafiq. Allah is extremely gentle and careful, or caring and nurturing and kind. Yuhibbu rifqa. Allah loves gentleness and kindness. Okay? And then he said, وَإِنَّ اللَّهَ يُعْطِي عَلَى الرِّفْقِ مَا لَا يُعْطِي عَلَى الْعُنْفِ. And Allah will give and grant for that which has rifq in it, that which you will not give and grant for that which has roughness and toughness and coarseness in it. وَمَا لَا يُعْطِي عَلَى مَا سِوَى. And you will grant on that which has rifq, gentleness and kindness in it, that which you will not give for anything beyond or besides that. Nabi Muhammad ﷺ said to Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha in one incident after she reacted and responded to a particular situation. He told her that rifq is not found in anything illa zanahu, except that it, rifq, will beautify that thing. And rifq is not extracted or removed from something illa shanahu, except that that thing, because it is void of rifq, that thing will be distorted and ugly. You were rendering of the Muhammadiyah, Qasida Muhammadiyah, which was also compiled by Imam al-Busiri. And Imam al-Busiri is most famously known for the Qasida Burda. Isn't it? Now, but something happened after Taif. First, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam went back into Mecca after Ju'rana, right? You know what happened in Ju'rana? Then he went back into Mecca, performed an Umrah, and then when he was arrested, they went back to Medina. When he went back to Medina, something happened. That the Qasida of Burda of Imam al-Busiri in our record is not the first Qasida Burda. There is another Qasida also referred to as the Qasida Burda, the Qasida of the shawl. There was a Sahabi by the name of Bujair. Don't hear that name. Bujair ibn Zuhair. At least once, radiallahu anhu. His brother, Ka'b bin Zuhair, was a famous poet. And Bujair was in Medina, had accepted Islam not long before that. And he was concerned about his brother Ka'b. You know why? Because Ka'b, who was roaming the Arabian Peninsula, getting some income through his poetry, because the poets were well sought after. The poets were rich. Stay with me, sir. The poets were the media. And if a poet praised you, you elevated. If a poet humiliated, like we said before, you degraded. Ka'b bin Zuhair started becoming even more famous because he had formed poetry against Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ridiculing him, and against Abu Bakr. He mentioned Abu Bakr also in one of his poems. And he was going from town to town, and Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, along with Ka'b bin Zuhair, Bujair's brother, Ka'b bin Zuhair, along with Ka'b, there were two others who the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made an announcement of in Medina. He said, if any of you were to travel and you come across Ka'b bin Zuhair or any of the other two, you call them to Islam. If they do not, and if they desist and persist in their poetry against Islam and against me, then I give you permission to fight them. Ya salam. Because times had changed. They were causing unnecessary ructions now. Makkah had become a Darul Islam, a Darul Salam. Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, after the conquest of Makkah, sent Khalid and sent others to various regions in the peninsula to throw down the idols. Beyond Makkah now, sulh was made with the Banu Thaqif of Taif. Like I said, they accepted Islam. Taif. And what was the big idol that was in Taif? Lat. Lat was broken down and thrown over as well. Things were happening. So there was no need for false media. You with me? So Bujair got concerned because it's his brother. He's also one of the three mentioned. So he writes to him. He gets one rider, one scout. He pays him well and he says, track my bro. Track him down, Kanala. And give him this letter. And the letter states, look, our Rasul, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, has said this regarding you and the two others. Now is the time. All that I know is, if you were to come to him in repentance, he will waive what he had announced. You with me? All I know is this. If you come in repentance, he will waive. So he had a fight with himself, this Ka'b bin Zuhair. And bottom line, because of time, he ended up going to Medina. And he ended up going not to his brother, he went to one other person whom he knew in Medina and asked, who amongst Muhammad's companions sallallahu alaihi wasallam has the most soft heart? Who do you think will consider me? Give me some hearing. So this man directed him to Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. And he told Abu Bakr who he was. And he told him what his state is. And Abu Bakr had heard what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam had said about him. So Abu Bakr told him, early morning, this time, you meet me at a particular spot. Fajr is done. The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam was busy sitting with the Sahaba. And Abu Bakr gets him and they enter together. And he takes, and Ka'b covers his face. Like the Bedouins, Tawrik, they used to do. And Abu Bakr leads him directly to the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he tells the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he is a man who wants to pledge allegiance to you. That's all he says. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam sitting, and he comes and sits in front of the Rasul, and he puts his hand in the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's hand. This is not Ka'b bin Zuhair. And he asks him, he says, if Ka'b bin Zuhair were to come in front of you and ask for safety, would you grant it to him? Nabi Sallallahu said, yes, most certainly. So he said, I'm Ka'ab bin Zuhair. You with me? They say one of the Ansar wanted to grab him. Nabi Sallallahu said, leave him. Nabi Sallallahu said, leave him because he has come in repentance. Nabi knew already. But the point is this. He then opened his face. He took Shahada and he asked permission to render a poem that he had made for this occasion. It has more than 50 verses, 59 verses. It starts with Banat Su'ad. You with me? He speaks about the attraction regarding, okay, it's a long thing. It's a beautiful qasida. But he comes to a point where he mentions the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is, imagine 50 odd verses, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is listening attentively, quietly. And he comes to a point when he mentions, he says, وَإِنَّ الرَّسُولَ لَسَيْفٌ مِنْ سِيُوفِ اللَّهِ وَإِنَّ الرَّسُولَ لَسَيْفٌ يُسْتَضَاءُ بِهِ مُهَنَّدٌ مِنْ سِيُوفِ اللَّهِ مَسْلُولُ. He said, verily the messenger, now they speak in metaphors. He said, the messenger is like a beautifully crafted sword with which you don't fight with which you draw light from the glare, man. And it's a unique sword from the swords of Allah. The Sahaba say, when he said this, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam looked up to the Sahaba and he did this, he nodded his head. Like what? Like, see what the man is saying. And when he concluded, the Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam took off his shawl, his burda, and he placed it on him. It is the first qasida burda. You with me? But see the rifq, see the gentleness, see the compassion, see the kindness. The ninth year is essentially referred to as the year of the delegations, the wufud. Delegations from all over the peninsula entered Medina to pledge allegiance or to accept Islam and pledge allegiance. I'll say it again. Because they were still not forced to accept Islam. He would offer Islam. And either they would accept and he would discuss with them, or they would say, look, we need time to reflect, but we pledge allegiance with you. We won't attack you, we won't fight, and we'll support each other, etc., etc. Amul Wufud, the year of the delegations, even though there were unique delegations that occurred in the 10th year as well. But what is also significant in the 9th year is that Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam's daughter Zainab, Kulthum, passed away. And An-Najashi passed away. An-Najashi was who? The king of Abyssinia. And when he passed away, Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gathered the Sahaba and told them, your brother in a far land has passed away, we will perform salah on him here. The only salah ala al-ghaib, it's not salatul ghaib or salatul ghaib. No, it's salah, as-salatu ala al-ghaib. Salah on the absentee, deceased. The only salah in absentia, the salah al-ghaib that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam performed was the salah on Najashi. He aligned the Sahaba and they performed Salatul Janazah on Najashi. It happened in the 9th year. One other man who died in the 9th year was a man who we mentioned before, who became known as disclosed by Allah in the Quran as the head of the munafiqun. The munafiq, you don't know who's a munafiq. But Allah had disclosed in the Quran that there are munafiqun in Medina. And we spoke about the reason for this particular person becoming a hypocrite or being deemed a hypocrite. We spoke about the reason. It was a political move that he made. You with me? Trying to instigate things from within because he wanted to be the governor before. We spoke about it. He died in that year. But now look at something else. Look at the rifq. Look at the rifq. His son, firstly, his name was who? His name was Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. His name was Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul. He named his son also Abdullah. So Abdullah bin Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul was a true Sahabi. And he knew that his father was the one who was being referred to in the Quran. And it hurt him. You with me? When his father was on his deathbed, he, the son, went to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He said, Ya Rasulullah, would you give me one of your shirts that I can shroud my father with if he were to pass away? And the Nabi didn't hesitate. Even though he knew who's the father. And it became known that the Nabi did that, and ulama of hadith, of seerah say, the Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it out of compassion for the son, because he knew that the son was feeling embarrassed. Is my pa wat die ayat oor gereveal gewees het. And everyone thought of his father in a particular way. More than that, the man died. And Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam goes to lead Salatul Janazah. Umar pulls Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's arm and said, Ya Rasulullah, it's him. He was the clear munafiq. Why are you going to lead Salah on him? So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I have not been prohibited from performing Salah on him. I've been given a choice. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam was referring to an ayah in Surah At-Tawbah. استغفر لهم أو لا تستغفر لهم إن تستغفر لهم 70 مرة فلن يغفر. Seek forgiveness for them or don't seek forgiveness for them. Even if you were to seek forgiveness for them 70 times, Allah will not forgive them. They were hypocrites. Why? Because they must seek forgiveness themselves. But you know what the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said? He told Umar, I'm going to seek more than 70 times. I'm going to ask Allah more than 70 times forgiveness for him. After the incident though, after the salah though, Allah revealed an ayah which stopped it. وَلَا تُصَلِّ عَلَىٰ أَحَدٍ مِّنْهُمْ مَاتَ أَبَدًا وَلَا تَقُمْ عَلَىٰ قَبْرِ. Don't perform salah on any of them after this. Don't even stand by his qabr. Therefore, after this, Umar used to watch. Because only after the incident of Abdullah bin Ubay bin Salul, that ayah was revealed. So Umar used to watch. If Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam led the salah himself, Umar would also be there. But if Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam told someone else to lead the salah, Umar wouldn't perform. Because only Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman knew the names. He's the keeper of the secrets, Hudayfa. Umar used to go to Hudayfa. Look at Umar again, other giant. Umar used to go to Hudayfa and tell him, I know you can't tell me the names. At least tell me, am I one of them? So then Nabi Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam gets news. Remember, he went to Khaybar in the 7th year. He had settled the treaties with the Jews there and the northern clans, and the Jews in the north and the Muslimun, the Arabs now settled there. They had information of what was happening in the Levant, in Sham. And who was in Sham? What happened in Mu'tah in the 7th year? The first time the Muslims were exposed to the Romans, the Byzantine Empire. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got news from them that the Romans were preparing to enter the peninsula. Because it was a smack in their face, remember, in the 7th year when they couldn't defeat the Muslims? And Khalid bin Walid so strategically managed to retreat and get them out safely. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, this happened in the 9th year. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam got news that the Romans were busy preparing to enter the peninsula. So the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called the Sahaba and he had a meeting and he said, we can't allow this to happen. We need to gather as much as we can, do as much as we can, and we need to go face them up there. Before they enter the peninsula, we don't want them to take over. You with me? And this is where the expedition to Tabuk took place. You heard about it. It was a very difficult expedition. It was in the heat of summer. Sahaba was struggling. You with me? Lots of things happened in this space. They came, and it needs its own time because that's beautiful detail regarding this expedition. Okay? But I want to come to one point. But before that, they passed by the area when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told them, this is the stone tract where the people of Thamud used to be. When Nabi Salih was. And you know the story of Nabi Salih, where his people asked him for a miracle. They wanted a live camel, a pregnant live camel to come out of a rock, etc. And then when it did happen, Nabi Salih told them, Allah is giving you time now. One day you have access to the wells. The next day, the camel must have access to the wells, etc. And at the end, they hamstrung, they killed the camel. Nabi Salih told the Sahaba, this is where it happened. And so he told them, if you go search for water there, don't stay too long there, lest adhab comes on you like it came on the people before you. It happened on that journey. There was a point where their rations were very little. So Nabi told them, gather a big sheet. And there were a few miracles besides. There was water. He stuck an arrow into the ground and water spouted out. And then he took a bowl and he put his fingers in the bowl and then he told them, take from it. And the water dripped and they filled the buckets and they drank and they took wudu. It all happened in this expedition. Something else, that expedition. And then the food, he told them, all the little you have, put it all together. And he closed it and he made dua and he said, now take. And they all could fill their sacks again. There's other space. But he's on the expedition, word yo, hy seker duisende saam met hom. He sits with him and he says, Where's Ka'b bin Malik? Ya Salah. There's hundreds of thousands there. He says, where's Ka'b bin Malik? So someone said, the dunya must have kept him back. Nabi Sallallahu said, don't say that about him. We know his heart. He was a Badri. He was with before in the second year at Badr. But the Nabi missed him in the mix. So now we go to Ka'b. We're speaking about rifq, reflection about compassion and gentleness. Ka'b narrates, and the hadith is famous in the chapter of Tawbah. And Surah Tawbah is named after this incident. Ka'b narrates, when the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam made the announcement and the call for us to move north on that expedition to Tabuk, I was tested. I had some land. It was producing produce more than before. So I told myself, I'll see to it for a day or two, and then I'll catch up with him. A day or two passed, and there was still more to do, and I told myself, there's still time, I'll catch up with him. And you know what happened? Days passed, where he says, so much time passed where message was sent that what? The Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sahaba, they were on the return. And what actually happened there, by the time or before Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Sahaba even reached Tabuk, news had reached the preparing armies that he was coming. So the Romans scattered into the Levant. They did not face them. So we see the Battle of Tabuk. It was an expedition, but there was no confrontation. Allah put awe in the hearts of the Byzantinians, the Byzantine armies, for the Muslimun. They did not face them. So things were still unsettled. But it was a win for the Muslimun. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam met even some other clans on that experience, and he set up treaties with them as well. So now they were returning. You with me? So he re-enters Medina. And the narration is famous. Where he, as he normally does, he goes to the masjid, performs 2 units of sunnah, and then he inquires about the condition of the people in his absence. And you know the long, beautiful narrative where people came to make excuses as to why they were not with, and Sahaba say they were known hypocrites. And I told myself, Ka'b says, I tell myself that I could easily please him on the spot, but I would sit with this worry and concern. So when I finally sat in front of him, I told him, Ya Rasulullah, I have no excuse. I have no excuse that validates my absence. It was what it was. This is what I told myself, and I never ended up coming and joining up with you. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made an announcement and said, as for him, he has spoken the truth. There were 2 others in the same condition. Hilal was the one's name, and Murara. Okay? In the same condition. They were more elderly than him. They were also Badris who never went with to Tabuk. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told him, I have no decision regarding you yet. I'm waiting for Allah to decide regarding you. The decision then came, the instruction came that those 3 must be excommunicated until further instruction. No one must speak with them. No one must interact with him. For 40 days, no one spoke with him. He says, and look at the rifq, he says, I used to go to the masjid for salah. No one spoke with me. No one greeted me, responded, doing greeting, nothing. He says, I would perform sunnah next to Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I would look to him and he would not look at me. And when I look away, in my periphery, I would see him looking at me. Did you get that? But Allah had instructed him not to speak with me. And after the 40th day, a further instruction came that our wives must go to their families. We must be left alone in our homes. Time for reflection. Time for introspection. You with me? And then, he says, after the 50th day, I'm sitting on my roof, the roof of my home. And I see, I'm there alone. Imagine that time, no one's speaking with you. Have you ever gone into a fasting of silence? Wow, it must result in some other clarity within yourself. So he sees a runner Someone excited. And he realizes it's Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, calling out, and he must go to the masjid, there's some good news. And someone comes to him by the house, and he says, I become so happy when I hear this good news, I must go to the masjid. He says, I take off my shirt and I give my shirt to him as a gift. Sahaba were like that. The Arabs were like that. They wanted to repay kindness with kindness. But here's the point, and here's the rifq. Oh, oh, oh. لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ عَزِيزٌ عَلَيْهِ مَا عَنِتُّمْ. A messenger has come to you from yourselves. What you have to endure is weighty and difficult upon him. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam felt for them. He had that empathy. He says, when I entered the masjid and I looked and I saw Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's face, and he says, he was always pleasant, but we could identify when he was additionally pleasant. His face was radiant like the full moon. And he called out to me before I even came to him. He said, Abshir bi khayri yawmin tala'at alayka mudh waladatka ummuk. He said, receive glad tidings of the best day of your life since your mother gave birth to you. Allah has revealed your tawbah. Allah has revealed the acceptance of your tawbah. So that also happened where? Huh? In the 9th year. And therefore, near the end of Surah Tawbah, search there, near the end of Surah Tawbah, Allah mentions this. وَعَلَى الثَّلَاثَةِ الَّذِينَ خُلِّفُوا. And Allah has accepted the tawbah of those 3 who stayed behind. But khulifu is unique. Khulifu means they were made to stay behind. They were tested. Huh? And then Allah at the end says, after that narration, Allah says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa kunu ma'as sadiqin. Oh, those who have iman, be aware of Allah, be conscious of Allah, and place yourselves with those who are honest. No matter what, speak the truth even if it's against yourself. Speak the truth even if it's bitter. قُلِ الْحَقَّ وَلَوْ كَانَ مُرًّا. It also happened in the 9th year. What also happened in the 9th year is this. Hajj became compulsory. The 9th year only. Now remember the scene. In the 8th year, conquest of Makkah, there were people who accepted Islam and pledged allegiance. And there were people who pledged allegiance but never accepted Islam, but they were still allowed in Makkah. And now Nabi Muhammad ﷺ is back from Tabuk, and there are still delegations coming into Medina to pledge allegiance. So he calls Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. The Rasul ﷺ calls Abu Bakr and says, pilgrimage, Hajj has been made compulsory. I can't go. I have to deal with these delegations coming in. I want you to go. And he informs him of what he should do. And 300 other Sahaba are going to go with Abu Bakr for the first Hajj in Islam. And he gives Abu Bakr an instruction. He tells him when the time is right, during the rituals, and you have everyone's attention, including the mushrikun who are still there, because they're still there, you have to announce that this is going to be the last year that people who are not on Islam, on Tawheed, will be allowed to perform their pilgrimage. They were not just blocked. There was some consideration. There was some time given. You are here now performing your pilgrimage still on your beliefs, but this is the last year. Next year, no Hajj will be allowed for people on Shirk. Only on Tawheed. Okay? Abu Bakr radhiallahu anhu accepts the responsibility. The 300 prepare. They are aware of what they must do. He's going to lead them and they leave. A day or so later, Allah reveals ayat. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam calls Ali radhiallahu anhu and said, Ali, these ayat were revealed. He teaches Ali radhiallahu anhu the ayat and he tells him, you have to meet up with Abu Bakr and them and consult with him, and when the time is right, you have to recite these ayat to the people. What do these ayat state? These ayat state that Allah is giving the mushrikun who are resident in Makkah, giving them 4 months to decide what they're going to do. Are they going to accept Islam and then continue living in Makkah? Or do they want to remain on the shirk? If so, by the end of the 4 months, they must leave the precincts. There will be no shirk occurring in that city anymore. You with me? And that's what Ali did. He met up with him, and Abu Bakr first asked him, have you come to lead or come to be led? He said, no, I came with a mission. And he told him, and then they made the announcement, and that was clear. So see how the puzzle is fitting in, see how the puzzle is formulating now and becoming complete. Every bit is important. Are you with me? The announcements were made. The Hajj was performed, alhamdulillah. But those were only 300 Muslims. There were still others there in the midst, stuck to their guns and their ways. But they were informed now. The Muslims are in charge. There's a Muslim governor. Who's the Muslim governor? Attab. We spoke about yesterday. Radiallahu anhu arda. Right? And this is the last time that people of shirk will be allowed to make their pilgrimage. And now those who are still resident there want shirk, 4 months to decide. But can you see the compassion? And the room and the time given for reflection and decision. Like Raha fi deen. There was no forcing in the deen. Okay. We come to the 10th year. Hajj is Musnaidul Hijjah. So the last month of the year, so the 10th year. There were still a few delegations coming into Medina. There was a man by the name of Adi ibn Hatim. He was a Christian but famous in the entire peninsula for his generosity. When he entered Medina, the people were speaking, telling each other, Adi ibn Hatim is here. At-Ta'i, famous, a Christian, was from the north. And the northern Arabs were influenced by the Byzantines, by the Byzantinians and the Romans and all who were of Christian, origin. So he came in, but he was known for his generosity and a man of influence. So the point is we're not going to go into additional detail, but see the rifq. Nabi speaks with him and Nabi calls him to Islam. So he says, I am on a deen. I am on a religion already. So Nabi says, yes, but you are not completely on your religion. He says, what do you mean? Nabi says, I know of religion better than what you know. So he says, what do you mean? Nabi said, if you have booty and you have arms, you take a quarter of whatever is collected. He said, yes. Nabi said, that's not according to your religion. The Nabi was informed and aware. And after negotiations and discussions, he accepted. No, it's right. I must accept. Okay? There's have you heard of Sheikh Saad al-Ghamidi? Yeah? So Banu, there's a clan, a Ghamid clan that came in, something unique that came in. This is in the 10th year. Amal di Itza, Nabi had to see too. They came in, they wanted to speak with him about pledging allegiance, but they wanted to know more before they wanted to commit. So as they're speaking, Nabi stops them. He stops them and he says, who else came with you but is not with you? So they said, the youngest of us was left at a particular spot to look after our goods. So Nabi said, one of your leather bags was stolen now. He's sitting with him, he's telling, one of your leather bags was stolen. Now they got panicky. So he said, wait. Nabi told him, wait. So he sits quietly. So he tells him, it was retrieved. So now this is surprising, right? So they rushed to where they left their goods. And the young boy who they left with their goods, they asked him what happened. So he says, I fell asleep. Toe ek wakker skrik, toe die een bag missing. And I followed the tracks because there were trackers in the desert. And I found a guy and I called out to him, but that was my mistake. When I called out to him, he ran. So I went to the spot where he sat and I noticed something was not right on the ground. And I dug there where he sat and I found the bag. I found the bag under the ground. Just as the Rasul had said. You with me? Amaldi, it's all these light few things happen in the 10th year. Because of the delegations coming in. And then, something profound, beautiful, again, speaking of rifq. Remember after Ta'if, remember after the Isra and the Mi'raj, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala directed Nabi Muhammad's heart to the incoming caravans. And remember I told you some of them treated him harshly? Okay? One of these clans who treated him the worst, 10 of their members entered Medina. They were the clan of Muharib, Banu Muharib. Okay? They were in Medina. They accepted Islam. And then they stayed there for a few days. Our narrations say Bilal had the duty to bring them an afternoon meal and an evening meal. They were strong, powerful men. But then one day, there's something happened. As they were sitting speaking to Rasulullah, because he had some Sahaba document some things regarding the deen that they must take with them, teaching them about the deen. But they say something strange happened. As they were sitting with him one day, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was looking at one man, and he was like focusing on him. So the man became embarrassed and shy, and he got closer to the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he asked the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, "Do you recognize me?" Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Yes, I saw you before." So he says, "Yes, Ya Rasulullah. I was one of those who used the worst words in response to you when you called us more than 10 years ago to Islam. I responded you in the worst manner possible back then." And Nabi recognized him. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Yes, I remember." So he said, "Ask Allah to forgive me for how I responded to you." So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "Al-Islam yajubbu ma qablahu min al-kufr." Islam erases all that was before it of kufr. No need for anything else now. It's all forgiven. You with me? Inna Allah rafiqun yuhibbur rifqa. Overlook it, overlook it, overlook it. Musaylama appeared. Musaylama was in the area as well. Wanted part of the rule. Musaylama claimed prophethood, and he was addressed later by Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu. Zaydul Khair. I think Maulana Khalil, when we first had these types of sessions addressing some Sahaba and what we could learn from them, they in Jamia Masjid, one of the companions we mentioned was Zayd, who was known before as Zaydul Khail, but Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam renamed him as Zaydul Khair. And he was also of those who entered in the 10th year, the note. We said that he was an outstanding man, and in his presence, Umar was silent. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, "No one of the Arabs was mentioned to me regarding his virtues, except that when I met that person, he was less than what he was described as, except Zayd. Zayd was more than what he was described as. The Zaydul Khayl." And I think it's an Algerian scholar. If you search on YouTube, Sheikh Mabrouk Zaydul Khair. I think he's a descendant of the Sahabi. Somehow they have record. And he is extremely eloquent. He also entered in the 10th year. Imagine the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "There's not been an Arab whose virtues were mentioned to me, except that when I met him, he was less than what they had mentioned." Many people exaggerated, except this man. What they described was less than what he actually is. Wow, outstanding man. What is the 10th year also known for? The 10th year is known for the death of Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's son Ibrahim. And when Ibrahim died, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam cried. And when Sahaba asked, "Why are you crying, Ya Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam?" He said, "This is a rahmah that Allah places in the hearts of whomsoever He wills of His companions." And he said, وَإِنَّا عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونُونَ وَإِنَّا عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ يَا إِبْرَاهِيمُ لَمَحْزُونُ. And we are, regarding your separation, O Ibrahim, we are indeed sad. إِنَّ الْعَيْنَ لَتَدْمَعْ وَالْقَلْبَ لَيَحْزَنْ وَلَا نَقُولُ إِلَّا مَا يُرْضِي رَبَّنَا. Verily the eye tears and the heart grieves, but we do not say except that which is pleasing to our Lord. What do we say? The eye tears and the heart grieves, but what do we say? We say, إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. The 10th year is also known by the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam delegating Mu'adh and Abu Musa al-Ash'ari to Yemen to teach Islam, convey the message of Islam, and to teach Quran. And the advices that he gave them were advices of rifq. He told the two of them, when you go to Yemen, yassira wa la tu'assira. Make easy for people and don't make things difficult. Bashira wa la tunaffira. Give people hope, give them glad tidings, and don't chase people away from you. Mu'adh was young, and you remember Mu'adh was of those who were in the Bay'at al-Aqabah al-Thaniya, the second pledge of Aqabah. But he spent so much time learning. There is a hadith when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam says, "Those amongst you who are most knowledgeable regarding halal and haram is Mu'adh." Imagine he just accepted Islam that year before the migration. And now 10 years later, in that year, before the Hajj even, the Prophet says there's a need for you and Abu Musa to go and teach. And Abu Musa is longer Muslim with me. And he advises Mu'adh, and he asks Mu'adh about what will you do when you have to deal with situations. Then Mu'adh said, I'll look in the Quran. But if you can't find the answer in the Quran, he says, I'll look in the hadith that I know. He said, if you can't find the answer there, he said, I will use my mind, and I will not give up until I find something that is in the best interest of the people. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made dua for him. It's all happened in that 10th year. And of the most significant to us here in this space especially is the fact that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam performed i'tikaf in the Ramadan of that 10th year. But unlike in any other year, in that 10th year, he performed i'tikaf for 20 nights. Okay? And he informed Sahaba that every Ramadan of every year of the prophethood, Jibreel alayhi salam would revise with me all received revelations. And we would revise everything once, except this Ramadan. In this Ramadan, we revised everything twice. And it's referred to as the final presentation. All that was revealed was revised in that last Ramadan, in the 10th year. And what is the 10th year most famously known for? It's most famously known for the farewell Hajj. It was the only Hajj that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam performed in Islam. And why the farewell Hajj? Because he bid farewell to everyone. On Arafah, there's lots that happened and there's lots of detail and you have to address it. But see the rifq, see the compassion, see the gentleness. On Arafah, one of the first things he said was, لَعَلِّي لَا أَلْقَاكُمْ بَعْدَ عَامِ هَذَا. It could be that I will not meet you after this year of mine. Could be. You with me? And you know the profound things he mentioned in the khutbah, the final sermon, that farewell sermon. That there's no virtue for an Arab over non-Arab, or vice versa. There's no virtue for people based on the complexion and nationalities, except for taqwa. And he said, your blood and your wealth and your honor is as sacred as this day and this place in this time. Sacred. And he said, regarding your woman, seek good advice regarding your woman, be good to them. And then he said, بَلِّغُوا عَنِّي وَلَوْ آيَةً. Convey from me, even if it be one verse. We all have that amana, that responsibility to convey from Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, even if it be one verse. And we have so many platforms now to convey. And then he says something unique. He said, فَلْيُبَلِّغِ الشَّاهِدُ الْغَائِبِ. Let those who are present here convey to those who are not present here. Because he said, رُبَّ مُبَلَّغٍ أَوْعَى مِنَ السَّامِعِ. It could be that the one whom things are conveyed to encompasses and contains it more, understands it more than the one who had heard. That's deep. It could be that the one who it is conveyed to, the muballigh, aw'a, is able to contain it more than the sami'. All this happened in that year. But now what is more significant or most significant regarding this Hajj? Because of the instruction in the previous year given to Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu, that the following year no one of shirk would be allowed to perform the Hajj. Do you realize what this Hajj was? This Hajj was the first Hajj in centuries. It was only performed by monotheists, by people of Tawheed. There was no people of shirk present there. Realize it. It was profound. Profound. All people of Tawheed. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam himself had muballighun. They say one of the sons of Umayya bin Khalaf. Umayya bin Khalaf was Bilal's slave master. The one who put him there in the burning sun. One of his sons, his name slips me. He had a loud voice, strong voice like Abbas. So when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam spoke on Arafah, His duty, one of his duties, was to convey what Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was saying to those who were further. Where did Umayyah bin Khalaf think that his son would have such a duty with the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, conveying the final sermon? Huh? Yes, Allah. So there were no more battles. But there's one thing I need to tell you, and we need to think about this. Because the reflection of today is what? We have to come out of Ramadan having learned things. Beyond the abstinence and all, we have to come out of Ramadan as better people, better individuals. And our attributes are important, our characteristics are important. And this characteristic is something that Allah loves. Inna Allah rafiqun yuhibbur rifqa. Allah is Rafiq, the most gentle and kind and compassionate, and He loves rifq. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, did he participate in the battles? Yes. Was he at Badr? Yes. Was he at Uhud? Yes. Anywhere else there were clashes, he was there. Now I ask you this question. How many people died at Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's hand? Did he have a sword? Yes. Did he throw spears? Yes. Did he know how to shoot a bow and to shoot an arrow? Yes. How many people died at his hands? Not one. After all the battles Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam participated in, not one person died at his hands. Hoe baklei mense en niemand gaat dood nie. He was defending mostly. Defending generally. Trying to deter ultimately. No one died in his hands. Man, I mentioned now who? Umayyah bin Khalaf. His brother, Ubay bin Khalaf. Listen, are you with me? And yes, it's Qaylula time, siesta time, but this is now the end. Bismillah. And we have to understand rifq. We don't know fighting. People lose their minds when they're on the battlefield because it's me or you. How do you condition yourself to be on a battlefield knowing people want to take your life and you don't want to hurt them? What type of person must you be? This is not self-defense when you're in your home and people come attack. This is a battlefield. It's now or never. You with me? There's bloodshed. People are really dying around you. But you have a mindset here where you don't want to kill anyone. You don't want to take their lives. But you're on the battlefield and you're defending. What type of man was he? Sallallahu Rahman al-Alamin, truly. So Umayyah bin Khalaf, we mentioned, his brother, Ubay bin Khalaf. From the Meccan time already, he used to intimidate Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Whenever he used to meet him, he would tell him, one day, you're going to die at my hands. And then Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never used to respond, except once. There was one time when he said to the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you're going to die at my hands. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, no, you will die at mine. So he never said it again. But he remembered that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that. Muhammad said, you're going to die at my hands. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Insha'Allah, by the permission of Allah. You with me? So now, it was in Uhud actually. I'm only mentioning this because there were no battles now after the Hajjatul Wada, but if you were to think about rifq, and you were to think about the experience, it happened in Uhud, when there was a point in the battle where you could see Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Sahaba could see he was on his way directly to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam on a horse. And the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was standing. Well, this is Ubay bin Khalaf. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam asked for one Sahabi for a spear. And when he drew closer in reach, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam aimed and he threw the spear. Okay? And the spear nicked him. Nicked his neck. They said it was a small nick. But it threw him off balance. It threw him off balance. And then he managed to regain balance and ride back. Forget what he wanted to do with Rasul. Ride back into his camp, calling out, Muhammad has killed me, Muhammad has killed me. Because it was on his mind. And he knew Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was honest. They were in a unique space, the characters that they were, unfortunately. They knew him, but the egos were holding them back. So obviously those around him told him, you've lost your mind. You were here. So he said, no. There was a day in Makkah when Muhammad said, I will die at his hands. And he said, they say he said this word, Shahid. They said, Ubay bin Khalaf said, Muhammad said those words, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We say Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? But he didn't say. He said, Muhammad said those words. And even if you were to spit on me, I would have died. He said those words. Ya salam. What a fool he was. Unfortunately, he was a fool. Why? Because on their way back to Makkah, this thing festered. And he became sick. And he ultimately died. But no one physically died at the hands of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. If you wrap your head around that, after all that he went through, no one died in his hands. He never killed someone literally. Never. He did not. Hmm? So now we come to the start of the 11th year. And briefly, it deserves reflection. It deserves time. It deserves us going to research and discuss and having more sessions. There are so many things in those last 2 weeks of his life, especially Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He became ill at the end of Safar, Muharram, Safar. Okay? Firstly, one thing I forgot to mention, and it's part of the, but just as a reminder again, just a reminder to see the whole picture. We went through everything, we got to this point. On Arafah, what was revealed, an ayah was revealed. One Jew told Umar radiallahu anhu, had that verse been revealed to us, we would have taken the day of its revelation, a day of celebration. What was revealed there? اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم وأتممت عليكم نعمتي ورضيت لكم الإسلام دينا. Today I have completed your deen for you, and I have perfected my ni'mah over you, and I am pleased with Islam as a religion for you. Allah revealed it there on Arafah. So Umar said, I know exactly where that was revealed, and it is a day of celebration. You with me? But think of what he did to his heart, Sallallahu, everything culminated. After where he was and all that he had to go through, now he finds himself now. There's extra rahmah descending, so it's fine. With thy bruda after, it's fine. But now where are we now here? Gentleness, rifq. And why this came to my heart and mind is because of the ultimate words. He got sick, and what did we say about Khaybar? What did the one elderly Jewish woman do when she prepared a meal? And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, even after she confessed she did poison the boat, the meal, the meat, what did he tell them? He told them, leave her. Yeah? But in this last few days, he's reported to have said, he said, I feel the effects of the poison from Khaybar. Think about it. That's why I told you, remember the incident. It's going to feature again. Because he spat it out, but it was already in his mouth. So scholars have thought, why would Allah grant him that? Why would Allah allow such a thing to happen to him? So you know what they came to understand? Even if it's in a small way, he's from what he had experienced of tests, right? What this condition was. After the Isra and Mi'raj, what his condition was. Allah had opened up different additional things for him, what his condition was. His spiritual condition. Elevated. And he's the seal of all prophets. And he's the Habib of Allah. One Sahaba was sitting there in Medina, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they didn't notice him standing nearby listening. And then when they realized, he went closer. And he told them, I was instructed by Jibreel to stand and listen to you. They were saying things. One was saying, they were discussing among themselves. And they said, how unique Nabi Adam alayhi salam is, because no one can take his position. He is the Abul Bashar, and no one can claim after him to be the father of humanity. You with me? So Allah said, yes, but how unique wasn't Nabi Ibrahim alayhi salam? Allah says in the Quran, Allah has taken him as a Khalil. No one else can claim that. So the third one said, yeah, but look how, this hadith is in Tirmidhi. Other one said, yeah, but look at Nabi Musa alayhi salam. Allah spoke to him directly. No medium. No one can claim that. Other one said, yeah, but look at Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Nabi Isa alayhi salam, no father. Ruhullahi wa kalimatuh. Just by kun fayakun. Salam. So Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, I was instructed by Allah to hear you and to inform you of something. Yes, Nabi Adam has that honor and no one can take it. Yes, Nabi Musa alayhi salam has that. Nabi Ibrahim, yes, Nabi Isa. And I've been informed to tell you that I am Habibullah. I'm the beloved of Allah. And all of them, Adam and all man dunahu, will be under my flag on the day of Qiyamah. I've been ordered to tell you this, wala fakhra, and I'm saying this without boasting. I'm the first one for whom the earth will open up on the day of Qiyamah. And I'm saying that without fakhr, without pride. He was informed to tell them, Ana Sayyidu waladi Adam. I am the Sayyid, the chief, the leader of all the children of Adam alayhi salam. Huh? That's why people feel shy sometimes to add Sayyidina when they make salawat. But he was informed to tell us he is the Sayyid. أنا سيد ولد آدم. أنا سيد ولد آدم. أنا سيد ولد آدم. I am the Sayyid of all the children of Adam. ولا فخر, without pride. So that last 2 weeks, I feel, so why? Scholars have tried to realize or think, why would Allah have that happen when He says, I feel the effects of the sum, of the poison of Khaybar? So that beyond all that Allah had given him of elevation of status, Allah gives him the status of shahada, of martyrdom as well. You see? He gets it all. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He gets it all, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Martyrdom as well. In that way, by Allah's decree. Habib and the Khatam and the best of all, and the martyr as well. He gave a sermon. In those last few, he was weak. They helped him into the masjid. He wanted to speak with everyone. And he said something in third person. He said, a servant of Allah, a slave of Allah has been given a choice between this dunya and meeting his Lord. And the slave chose his Lord. Abu Bakr began to cry. Only him. Because he knew Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was referring to himself. It was done now, the mission was done. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحِ was the last complete chapter to be revealed. And Ibn Abbas later says, it says yes, when the help of Allah comes and victory comes, and you see people entering into the deen of Allah in flux, it's the help of Allah. It's victory from Allah. It's the deen of Allah. You see them entering into the deen of Allah in flux, then you glorify with the praises of your Lord even more, and you seek His forgiveness. It taught humility. It's Allah's help. All was accomplished. Imagine 23 years. He saw what he yearned for happening. People were entering in flux. Huh? Spread all over. The whole peninsula had changed. And Aisha radiallahu anha says, after that surah was revealed, she would hear him constantly say, Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik astaghfiruk. Glory be to you, Allah, with all your praise, I seek your forgiveness. So it was time. So what does Ibn Abbas say? Yes, that surah speaks about help of Allah and victory and people entering the deen of Allah in flux. But it was also a proclamation, an announcement that the time of Rasulullah SAW on this dunya was nearing an end. Ibn Abbas was able to see that in the surah. As is narrated later in Umar's time. He gave advice and reminders. He spoke to people about their rights. And he gave a special reminder to the Muhajirun to take good care of the Ansar. Not to forget what the Ansar did for them. You with me? And then that last period, there was once, we said it yesterday, when he was too weak to lead the prayer, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he said Abu Bakr must lead. And you know what Aisha radiallahu anha then said? No, my father, he cries so much, you won't be able to hear what he's saying. But then he says, Ya aballahu wa rasuluhu wal mu'minun. Allah refuses, and His Rasul refuses, and the believers all refuse except for Abu Bakr to lead. Abu Bakr must lead. So there are narrations as to how many salahs, you can check how many salahs Abu Bakr led in the lifetime of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But there's one incident when Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was helped by Abbas and Ali to the front, and Abu Bakr was about to lead. And then he heard a noise, and he looked back and he saw they were making space for the Rasul to come through. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was then placed on the musalla in front, and he sat. And he wanted to Abu Bakr wanted to retreat, but Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam motioned for him to stand next to him. So picture this: the Rasul is now the Imam. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Abu Bakr is right next to him, and the congregation are going to now perform salah. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam's voice was too weak to reach everyone. So Abu Bakr made tabligh, he made takbir on the movements of the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So the Sahaba say, we moved by Abu Bakr's takbirs, and Abu Bakr was moving by the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That's where you get the idea of the mukabbir. Where there's a need, you can have that situation. It happened in that space there. All for us to learn. And then the last was this. The Fajr morning, On the 12th of the Rabiul Awwal. It was a Monday. Yes, the 12th of the Rabiul Awwal. What was the day he entered Yathrib in? Medina in? The 12th. And regarding his birth, is difference of opinion. Most of us say the 12th, but there's difference of opinion. Because it was way back, and like we said, there wasn't a particular eye on him before the message. There were more eyes on him, and there's more detail and more surety regarding events after he got the message. But before. But the 12th was a Monday. Fajr prayer. Sahaba say he looked out of the window and they were aligned for the prayer and he smiled. He smiled. The last glance seeing them in obedience altogether. Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha narrates, and this is the final point, because the reflection is about this attribute of rifq. Okay? The attribute of rifq, and that Allah loves it. And Allah grants reward and blessing and bounty based on how much rifq we do things with. How much gentleness and care and compassion. And He gives more for that which has rifq in it, more than what He gives with anything else. Okay? And the rifq is not found in the thing illa zana, except it beautifies the thing. And a thing is not void of rifq, except that thing is then distorted and ugly. This is the reflection. What we're going to do beyond Ramadan, what we're going to say beyond Ramadan, what we're going to choose not to do, not say, our choice, our interaction. It's all about, and that's with taqwa that we are to develop. What will be the result of most people entering Jannah? The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, when he was asked, that which will cause most to enter Jannah is taqwa and beautiful character. With me? Yes, I'm aware, but now what does it result in? It results in me becoming better. And that's why the beautiful character will weigh the most. More than my salah, yes. More than my fasting, yes. More than my tarawih, yes. More than my i'tikaf, yes. More than my recitation, yes. More than my spending, yes. My beautiful character will weigh the most. That shah must come out of the bed. So Aisha radiallahu anha says, and there's lots that she said in those last few days. And we're not going to speak about the janazah and all that. That's for a different space. That you need time for. But the last moments. Because he used this word. He spoke with his wives, advised his wives. He spoke with Sahaba. And of the last he said was as-salah, as-salah. Remember your salah, your salah. We know those things. But the last by her, she said, I recited the quls. Aisha radiallahu anha, I recited the quls. I blew the quls into his hands, and with his own hands I wiped his body. And this hadith is in Bukhari. She said, I did this, I recited the quls, I blew into his hands, and I wiped his hands with his own, I wiped his body with his own hands, whatever we could reach, because his hands have more barakah than mine. Aisha radiallahu anha. Then she said, my brother Abdul Rahman entered, and he had a new miswak in his pocket. And I could see the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam motioning to it. It was too weak to speak. Motioning. So she said, I realized he wanted to clean his teeth because he was always concerned about his oral hygiene. So she told her brother, right here. So she softened the edge and she says, I cleaned his teeth with it. And she's proud of that. She said, the last physical interaction that Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had of this dunya was that my saliva mixed with his. And then she heard something she didn't expect. And this is what we end with. We are here and we're seeing each other. We are here and we interact with each other. We are here and we have opinions of each other. Okay? May Allah cover our shortcomings from each other in this world and the next. But everything that we're doing is supposed to be for Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. And our love for the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam and our love for the Quran is merely because of our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's all about La ilaha illallah. All the messengers were sent because of La ilaha illallah. All the books were sent because of La ilaha illallah. Everything is because of Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's about yearning to have that prized position with Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Is it not? Now, she heard Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam say something. Now you might think, and someone asked me this once, but the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam's whole life was about La ilaha illallah. He embodied it. Isn't it? His character was the Quran. He embodied the Quran. And all of the Quran was about La ilaha illallah. Did he need to say La ilaha illallah as his last? Did he need to? He embodied it all. He said something which only he could say. What did he say? She heard him say this. And when she heard him say this, she says, I realized he had made his choice. Salam. Like the Anbiya get a choice. Like the Anbiya get a choice. It's time. Now it's time. Exactly 1 minute, inshallah. He said, بل الرفيق الأعلى بل الرفيق الأعلى بل الرفيق. He used the word رفيق الأعلى. He said, rather the most exalted Rafiq, rather the most exalted companion, rather the most exalted one who shows gentleness and kindness. Who was he referring to? Allah. He loved Aisha. He loved Abu Bakr. He loved them all. They were in a good space now. Time was right. He was preferring Allah now. The time had come. Sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Rifq. What goes around would come around. Because he knew he lived with rifq, he could refer to Allah as Ar-Rafiq. Because he knew. Some people do wrong and they say, yeah, but Allah's Ghafoor Rahim, man. Some people do wrong, but they say, yeah, but Allah's Ghafoor Rahim. No. You have to live with Rahmah if you want that Rahim to treat you with Rahmah. You have to forgive if you want the Ghafoor to give you forgiveness. Man la yarham la yurham. Who does not show mercy will not receive mercy. You can't do wrong and say, yeah, but Allah's Ghafoor Rahim. Likewise, because he knew he lived with that rifq, he could refer to Allah as Ar-Rafiq. Jalla Jalaluhu. May Allah bless us with many good years ahead. Time for reflection and growth. May Allah make us worthy of those who receive His pardon in this month, who are free from all forms of negativity, and come out of those who are worthy to rejoice not only at iftar, but to rejoice when we meet Him subhanahu wa ta'ala and benefit from His rifq. Ameen. وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الحمد لله رب العالمين.